Okay, students, so talking about the key features of our Indian constitution, first we are going to take federalism, that is federal structure. The Indian constitution is written and federal in structure. It has federal features such as division of subjects between the center and the states, dual system of government, independent judiciary, and bicameral legislature. So, though the constitution is federal in structure, it is unitary in spirit. It has some unitary features like distribution of powers in favors of center, financial dependence of the state on the center, and emergency powers of the central. All this provision makes our constitution partly unitary and partly federal in structure. So, students, a federal system of government is one that divides the power of government between the national government and state government and the local government. Now, explaining a little bit on this point, I can say local government. We know that a village also have panchayat raj and local self government to take care of a village. Talking about the state has its own power. It is having a state government. Now, maintaining the whole country, we have our central government. Another important feature of Indian political system or Indian constitution is its parliamentary form of government, both at the union and the state levels. India has a parliamentary form of government both in the center and the state. It is modeled on the British pattern. A parliamentary system is a system of democratic governance of a state where the executive branch derives its democratic legitimacy from the legislative branch. India has a parliamentary form of government which is feature borrowed by the British Constitution. The president is the head of the state and prime minister is the head of the government. The parliament is bicameral in nature. It consists of president and two houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The councils of ministers are directly responsible to the Lok Sabha and stay in office as long as they enjoy its confidence. The cabinet is headed by the prime minister and is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. In other words, the executive is responsible to the legislature, which is representative of the people. Now, the next features of our constitution is division of powers. So, according to our constitution, the power of the government is divided into three organs. We know all the three organs, we have already studied in the previous standard. The three main organs of the government is legislature, executive, and judiciary. Okay, now legislature refers to the elected representative. Executive is responsible for the implementation of laws and regulations for smooth running of the government, and judiciary declares if any law passed by the legislature or the executive beyond the legal power or authority. The next feature of Indian constitution is fundamental rights of the citizen. Our constitution guarantees some basic fundamental rights to its citizen. The word fundamental means the constitution has separately listed and made some special provisions for the protection of the fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are different from other rights, that is, ordinary legal rights available to the citizens of India. As our preamble to our constitution speaks of ensuring all its citizens equality, liberty, and justice, fundamental rights put this promise into effect. The Constitution of India provides 6 fundamental rights, which are mentioned in Articles 12 to 35 in Part 3 of the Constitution, and they are right to equality, that is, the rule of law is the foundation of Indian democracy, that states that the laws apply in the same manner to all, irrespective of the person's status. It means that the prime minister of the country or a poor farmer in a remote village is subject to the same law and equal treatment. Number 2, right to freedom. Freedom means non interference and absence of restrictions in one's affair by the others, whether it be the individuals or the government. And the Constitution of India provides all the citizens freedom under the Article 19 to do any of the following acts, like right to freedom of speech and expression, right to form assembly in a peaceful manner, right to form associations or unions, right to move freely throughout the country, right to reside in any part of a country, right to practice any profession or any occupation or trade or business. Next is right against exploitation. The Constitution of India provides distinct and clear provisions to prevent exploitations of the weaker section of the society. The Constitution prohibits some practices as evil and declares them illegal, like trafficking of human beings. That means the selling and buying of human beings. Generally, we can see women and small children are the victims of this trafficking. Forced labor or beggar in any form is illegal and is prohibited. Child labor is also prohibited. The next is right to freedom of religion. India is a secular state, which means that the state has no official religion, and India does not promote and protect any one religion over the another religion. Every citizen in India has a liberty to profess, practice, and propagate the religion that he or she believes in. Next is cultural educational rights. The democracy is based upon the wish of the majority. In this system, the rights and the interest of the minorities need to be protected by developing a mechanism that cannot be changed by the majority. Therefore, in a democratic country, special protection is provided in the Constitution to preserve and develop the language, culture, and religion of the minorities. Any section of citizen with distinct language or culture has a right to conserve its language, culture, and religious practice. Next is right to constitutional remedies. A person aggrieved by the violation of any his or her fundamental right can approach either to the Supreme Court or the High Court for the restoration of his or her fundamental rights. The enforceability of the right is very important aspects of all the fundamental rights, and hence it is also called as right to constitutional remedies. And according to the chairman of a drafting committee of Indian Constitution, Dr. Bhim Rao Ambedkar, the right to constitutional remedies is the heart and soul of Constitution. Next feature of our Indian Constitution is directive principles of state policy. These are the guiding and directing principles of the state. If they are properly implemented, India will certainly become a welfare state. This principles aims to establish socialism in India because they direct the state to provide equal wages for the equal work and free and compulsory education for children up to the age of 14 years. Next feature of our Indian Constitution is secularism. As I said in the fundamental rights section, that is the right to freedom of religion, that our India is a secular state. That means everyone has that right to propagate any religion that he or she wants. Nobody can force anyone. Talking about secularism, a secular state has no religion of its own. It does not promote any religion. The word secular has been incorporated in the preamble to the Constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, as I have already spoken about it in the previous preamble part. The inclusion of the word secular signifies that the state does not discriminate any religion, and it shall allow the freedom of conscience, faith and belief, and freedom of adoption and propagation to all the religions. Now the another topic is laws and dissent. Government makes laws and implements them for the welfare of the people, that we all know. So what do you think? All the laws implemented by the government are in the favor of all sections of the society? If in case a situation arises when the law does not protect certain interest of the people, then what should the people do? That means if the common people are not feeling protected, that the law enforced by the government is not at all beneficial for them, what should the people do? In such cases, What do you think? Should they raise their voice against the laws or obey them politely? To understand um, or to elaborate the concept of laws and dissent, we will discuss two incidents in two different political contests, before independence and after independence. Now, talking about the first incident, that is salt satyagraha. The foremost example of the dissent was civil disobedience movement, that is breaking the law. The British had a monopoly on the manufacture of salt in India, and to earn more revenue, they had imposed tax on collection of the salt, a substance used by all sections of the society. Heavy taxation had already brought the population to the verge of starvation, and this law was unbearable and exploitative. So Gandhiji decided that drastic and demonstrative actions was needed to ignite the nation and serve as the expressions of the will of the general. On 6th of April 1930, Gandhiji picked up a small lump of natural salt at Dandi, thus violating the law. The Salt Satyagraha campaign demonstrated to the world near flawless use of new instrument of peaceful militancy against the oppressive and exploitative British law. It was the first series of movements using the principle of civil disobedience, which panicked the British and made them unleash violent and brutal measures to suppress the menace posed by them. Now, the second instance was the anti-liquor agitation, that was after independence. Anti-liquor agitation in independent India carry forward the legacy of Satyagraha as established by Mahatma Gandhi. It was part 4th of the Indian Constitution under the directive principles of state policy. The protest against the liquor laws can be considered as dissent, that is, protest against a law claiming it does not protect the citizens' fundamental rights of health care, besides violating the directive principles which recommended the prohibition of consumptions of alcoholic liquor. Women were severely affected by alcoholism as their domestic life gets disturbed, and they are often subjected to physical abuse. So, this agitation against the liquor in Manipur was led by the women's association named Nupi Len. They agitated against the sale of cheap illegal liquor distilled from rice. And one such agitation was in Dubagunta in the Nellore district of Andhra Pradesh by two adult literacy program employees. These two were abused by the couple of drunkards. Women who were attending the literacy classes outraged strongly against this incident. Armed with bamboo sticks and chili powder, attacked the shops and forced them to shut down. Motivated by this incident, women of the Nellore district formed an anti-liquor movement. The success of these two anti-liquor movements was the result of mass participation of the local people. So here we end up the lesson. I hope you all understood it. All the notes of all the 3 lessons will be sent in the School Connect app. Thank you.